This video is about moving up. See what I did there? Terrific. Good to see you. And we're going to talk about moving up limits. Look, what can I do? I don't have a budget for special effects. It's just me and a whiteboard. That's all we've got. If you've got a better idea, let me know. I thought that was terrific. Seriously. Where's it going? Where does it end? We're going to talk about moving up limits. Now, this is vitally important to you if you want to do well in your poker career, right? And I'm sure you don't want to always play poker at the limit you're at now. It doesn't matter if you're a cash game player, a tournament player, a sit and go player. It really doesn't matter. We all want to do better, right? We all want to play for bigger stakes, have more success, have a bigger bankroll. And it always involves moving up the limits. Now, the one caveat to that is that sometimes you're going to go for volume, not move up the limits. So if you're playing online, you might want to just add tables. But even then, if there's an opportunity to win more per session, you're probably going to take it. So how do we move up the limits? Well, a lot of progression is actually psychological. Some of it is playing differences, which I'll talk about, but some of it's just psychological barriers, right? You're comfortable at a certain level or a certain limit of buy-in. And when you move up a level, it's kind of a little bit intimidating. Your brain thinks everyone's going to be a super genius. You think that, there's going to be a lot more pressure, there's going to be a lot more aggression, you're going to get overwhelmed. And maybe just sometimes the money, right? You're buying in for a bigger amount if you're playing tournaments, or you're putting more in each pot if you're playing cash. That can be intimidating as well. And it can all result in you not playing particularly well. So I'm going to go through the steps that I think you should take to make it easier. And most of those steps are going to be around minimizing the level of difficulty or the level of impact that moving up a limit actually creates. Because if your brain feels like it's making a big jump, then it's probably not going to do very well with that, because suddenly you're going to turn your normal poker game into a pressure-filled session. And we don't want that, because it's hard to play your best. So how do we move up the limit? Well, fundamentally, number one, with the bullet, vitally important, is prove you can beat the limit you're at. So prove you're a winner. Beat your limit. Several times our breakthrough poker coaching students will ask me or our coaches here, should I move up the limits because there are too many bad players in my game, and if I move up the limits, my bets and races will get more respect and I'll do much better? I'm here to tell you that's probably not true, right? If you're currently not beating the game you're in because you feel like the game plays badly for you and you can do better at a higher limit, there are some instances of that being true, but generally it's not going to be true. Generally speaking, the more you go up the limits, the tougher the games get, because you get a greater percentage of better players, a lower percentage of weak players, and you get a greater amount of aggression, awareness, ability to adjust. It's just going to get tougher as you move up the limits to actually make money. Now, what you might do is you might see less showdown pots because you get less weaker players that call to the end, and that might result in less bad beats. But that doesn't mean it's easier to make money at the high limits. It is going to be tougher. I find it hard to take a student seriously if they say that they want to move up when they can't actually show me they're beating the game that they're in. So for yourself, you need to prove to yourself that you can make money in a current game before you move up. Now, the only exception to that is if you've got money you don't mind losing and you cannot take the game you're in seriously, right? So the only exception to that is if you don't play well in the game you're in because the money, the buy-ins, whether it's tournament or cash, is too low, you don't take it seriously and you don't play well, and you've got the money to play at a higher limit, right? Your finances are your own decision, but I don't want to encourage you to do anything that could, cost you money you can't afford to lose. So that's the only caveat that I will accept, which is that you don't take your current game seriously. In general, though, you want to show a track record of winning before you actually try and move up, right? So you may want to stop the video if you're not ready to move up. Step two is to be bankroll cautious. Be bankroll cautious. I'm going to put bankroll nit. A nit is just a tight person or a tight player or someone that doesn't like to commit money. There's a lot of payoff in poker for being aggressive, right? Especially no limit hold'em. Oftentimes the more aggressive player will win in a given situation. There's not a lot of reward for being bankroll aggressive. Now, having said all of that, I am going to talk to you about taking shots at higher limits later on in this video. But in general, you want to be conservative with your bankroll. There's lots of different reasons for this, not least that I want you to avoid the risk of going broke with your poker bankroll or your personal finances. but also because I believe it helps you to be a better player if you're being bankroll cautious. So what I mean by that is you want to have a lot of buy-ins for the game that you're playing in. Now, I'm not going to be super specific about this. How many buy-ins really varies depending on how aggressive the game is and how big an edge in that game you have. But let's just put it this way. If you're playing a cash game and you lose all of the chips in front of you, if that's 1/100th of your total bankroll, that's going to have a completely different emotional impact than if it's a quarter of your bankroll, right? The first one, you'll barely even notice. You'll just think of it as a poker hand. You'll analyze it later. You'll think about it later, whatever. The second one could absolutely devastate you, right? If you've lost 25% of your bankroll in one pot. So that's the difference that having a conservative bankroll makes. You really want at least 40 buy-ins. More is better. And I find that that allows people to play much better poker. You're much more comfortable and confident with that money behind you, making big bets and big raises and whatever. Now, you don't have to have this money separate. You can, if you're prepared to, just top it up with your real world money. It's up to you how you manage your money. But in general, I would like to see a decent amount of buy-ins before you move up a limit. Otherwise, it's going to be very hard for you to play well. And if you do have a losing run, which can happen to anyone, even if they've got a big edge, then it is going to have a big impact on you. So be cautious with your bankroll, have plenty of buy-ins before you move up. 3 is going to be make it gradual. So make it gradual. Oh. As I said at the top, if your brain thinks that this is a big deal and you're making this huge leap to a new limit, it'll probably struggle and not play that well, not think that clearly, and you probably won't get the results that you're capable of. So try and make it gradual, your ascendance up the limit. There's lots of different ways to do this. You can mix up your sessions, right? So you could play 3 sessions at your normal limit and then a 4th session at the higher limit you want to move to. 3 and 1, 3 and 1, then 2 and 1, 2 and 1, or whatever. You can also mix up tables if you're playing online. So if you normally play 4 tables, you could make one of those tables the higher limit and just try and play the same game on all 4. Then as the weeks go past, make 2 of them the higher limit and so on. Or you could base your decision what game to play on based on how you're feeling, how focused you are, how fresh you are, how close to your A game you think you can play, and only play the high limit you're trying to move up to on those sessions where you know you feel good and you can play well. This all applies for tournaments as well as cash, by the way. But make sure you make it a gradual progression. Don't make it this big deal, right? Tuesday the 15th, I'm going to make the jump, because it's very hard to succeed like that. You put yourself under pressure and you won't play your best. So make your progression gradual. The next thing that's important is to play your natural game. So play your game. As you start to play in the higher limit, you may want to adjust your game, you may want to make changes, you may encounter some levels of aggression and things you haven't seen too much before, but that's all going to come down the road. For now, if you start thinking about that before you jump into the high limit games, you're going to get yourself into a mess mentally, right? You're going to try and change things before there's any reason to change things. You're going to try and adjust when you're not even comfortable in the game, and so on. The best chance you have of winning at a new limit is just to play your normal game. After all, it is still No Limit Hold'em, right? Or whatever game you play. It's still poker. It's still going to be the same game that you're playing at your old limit. It's just going to be a little bit tougher. And the difference probably won't even be as big as you think, right? The difference probably won't be as big as you think. It may play differently, the higher limit game, but you're still making poker decisions. You're still making No Limit Hold'em decisions. So as much as you can, just play your natural game until you find reason not to. Number 5 is going to slightly contradict that, but not much. And that is have areas that you are working on and improving. So improve relative to the game. Oh, improve for the game. Now, if you're on the quest to do better in poker, you're going to be trying to improve all the time, of course, right? The more specific you can make that improvement and that work, the more results you're going to see. I'd really recommend watching the higher limit that you're going to play out a little bit in between sessions. Perhaps watch some of the bigger winners, whether it's live or online, in those limits, or people whose games you respect, and ask yourself, what are they doing well, or what are they doing better than me? Have no ego about it, right? We're all on an improvement journey. And if you want to beat that better limit, you don't have to beat the best player at that limit, because you're not going to play most of your hands against them. But that is going to give you an idea of the skills that you need to accumulate or get better at in order to beat that limit badly, which is what we want to do. So you might want to watch one of those good players, or just think about how the bigger game is playing or what the differences are, and make those your areas to improve on. In general, obviously, the key to beating Beckett limits is just to become a better poker player, right? And to execute better. But if you can make it specific to certain things, whether that's pre-flop aggression, making thin cooldowns, thin value bets, bluffing. These are all skills that if you can get, specific about them, you can see a big improvement quite quickly. And if it's tailored to the game you want to beat, so much the better. And finally, I want to talk about some stuff that contravenes some of this, and that's taking shots. So take shots. So this is the one regret I have about my playing career, which is that back when I was playing full time, now obviously I run the coaching business and do some media stuff, so it's a little bit different. But back when I was playing full time, I didn't take enough shots at higher limits. I was a little bit too slow with my progression. So by taking shots, what we mean is taking a tilt at a higher limit, maybe even 2 limits higher, tournament buy-in, cash buy-in, doesn't matter. And you're not actually making a move up to that limit. Potentially you don't have a comfortable enough bankroll to do it, but you're taking a shot at that limit to see how your game measures up. Now, obviously this runs contrary to some of the advice I've given in this video. So you only want to do this under certain criteria. The first is you only want to do it with money you can afford to lose, right? Because the most likely outcome of taking a shot is that you will lose that money, or you won't be a favorite in the game because you are taking a shot at that big game at that high limit. The second thing, obviously, is that even if you were a winning player, you could have that downswing. So it must be with money that you can lose. The second criteria to taking a shot is that you must never chase that money. So don't go up to a higher limit, play your 10 buy-ins that you set aside to, 10 buy-ins you set aside to play at that limit, lose it and think, oh, now I've lost that money, I'll try and get it back, and pony up another 10 buy-ins. Don't do that. Just set it as an exercise. You're going to try it, and then if it doesn't work out, you're going to move back to your game you can beat, right? And you're going to grind up that money again. The benefit of doing this, of taking shots, is that it can develop your game very quickly, right? You are putting yourself in tougher competition voluntarily, and you might even win. You might even stay at that limit, but if you don't, you'll at least get the experience against playing against tougher competition, and you'll know what you need to work in. So occasionally, when you've got money you don't mind losing, if you think you can play your natural game in a bigger game, take a shot and you can advance your development through the limits. Apart from taking shots though, it is a patient process. You do have to build both your skills and your bankroll to move up, but it's a really fun process and it's a constant challenge. And as long as you make everything gradual and keep working on your game, there's no reason why in 12 months time you can't be 2, 3, 4 limits higher up than you are now if you've got the time to play. Progression is always possible in poker, no matter how tough the games get. And as long as you're getting the right advice, and the right help, and you're committing and applying yourself, you can definitely do it. If you want any help with it, I'd love to hear from you. Obviously, we run our coaching program, which is designed to get you up through the limits, so you can email us for details of that, or just leave a comment underneath this video to let me know what you thought and to ask any advice that you want about moving up and about improving your poker. That's why I'm here. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, give it a like on Facebook, share it on Facebook or with other media so we can get the message out there. And until the next one, run good, because that's the hard part.